You know what's cool? Podcasts. You know what's not cool? No podcasts. Check out all the podcasts over here at blindknowledge.com. This podcast you're listening to right now is a featured Blind Knowledge podcast.
Okay, hey, we're back, and we are here live on the phone with the Elvis Presley of funk, Mr. George Clinton. How are you?
I'm fine. How y'all doing?
We're excited to have you on the air, and thank you very much for doing this at such a short notice. I appreciate it.
I'm ready for you. I've been D-flea, D-ticked. I got my rabies shot, and I'm ready to bury the bone.
There you go.
I love it. I just got my flu shot, so I'm game. We got Joe and Alex with us in the studio. They're big fans, and we thought we'd let them ask some questions.
Hey, world, how are we doing today?
Cool.
So go for it, guys.
So my first question for you, Dr. Funkenstein, you're out in Los Angeles, correct?
Yes, I'm out here promoting my new book.
There we go. I need to ask you one thing. Have you been to In-N-Out Burger?
No, I've been on a diet.
Oh,
I've been on a juice diet for quite a while lately.
Well, I'll tell you right now, that's one thing that you should definitely break your diet for.
In-N-Out. Okay, I'll check this out.
George, my name is Joey. I work here at the Gag Order Network. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Cool.
Just a quick question. Your music is charted on the funk charts, hip-hop, R&B pop hit lists, and etc. You've appeared on the bill with rock acts such as Ted Nugent, Iggy Pop, Bob Seger, and as well as being introduced into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And in 2015, this year, you're performing at Australia's Blues Fest. So I got to know, especially today, did you think that your music would ever cross over into these different genres that you're playing in?
Oh, well, I thought they would. I mean, we started out with Motown, and that was already pop music for the 60s. And then the 50s music came back in, which I knew from my mother's and father's records, like rock and roll from Europe. So by the time we got there with Bootsy, James, Fred Wesley, Maceo Parker, Jimi Hendrix type music under our belt, Motown under our belt, I knew we had what we call P-Funk, the pure funk. And I think that's going to be around for a long time. Sampling came about, and funk is the DNA for hip-hop. So we was lucky enough to do that. I worked with the Chili Peppers. We were lucky enough to be in on that type of music. So, yeah, we worked hard for that, and we still at it. We got a new album coming out next week, 33 songs on it.
Oh, my God.
Whoa, nice.
Wow.
That's a mammoth.
What's funny is I noticed a lot of music today is crossing over. So it would only seem natural that yours would. Because I myself am a metalhead, and I see metal adopting parts of blues, rap, even reggae to some extent. I've seen it. I've heard it. And so I can understand.
I mean, music is best when it's mixed with each other.
Right.
When they all start cross-pollinating.
Right.
That's when music get really good. Back in the 60s, you had every kind of music being played by rock bands. And then, you had the R&B sound of Motown, which turned into rock. When we came along, we made loud Motown Funkadelic. We call it Funkadelic.
So Funkadelic itself is sort of like a concept. It's a specific sound, I guess. Can you?
Yeah, it's the psychedelic side of Paralament Funkadelic. It's the Jimi Hendrix sound, like a maggot brain.
Oh, man, I'm going to ask you about that later, but please continue.
And Super Stupid. Those songs we were actually going after. Like I said, the Jimi Hendrix sounds, the Who, Cream, but we were still doing it with a funky beat as opposed to blues or rock and roll, which is basically the same music. To me, the only thing that separates them, to me, is tempo, most likely. Mm-hmm. Slow down rock and roll become blues or become funk. If you slow it way down, it become blues. If you slow it mid-tempo, it become funky, kind of like New Orleans. That's basically funky music. James Brown, funky music. That's that mid-tempo, the part that make you behind, betray you.
So, yeah, I mean, so you're sort of taking, like, all these different styles and trying to translate them into, like, something new. But when you were starting back in the day, the 60s, through the 70s, did you think that, your music would be something that would sort of reach different crowds? I mean, what did the crowds look like at that time, say, compared to now?
Well, in the 50s, it was all the same. It was black and white, all was one. When the rock and roll first started, you know, in the 50s, Frankie Lyman, right on through Dion and the Belmonts, you know, right up into the 60s, and Motown even was all one. It only separated mid-60s when rock and roll started becoming underground with the FM stations, and it becomes separated R&B, then rock and roll or metal. That separated them, you know, for the radio stations and their ads, whoever the demographics was. Funk, we brought it all back together with Funkadelic, because you had the rock and roll side of us playing the Maggot Brains in the late 60s with Iggy Pop and the Amboy Dukes and, you know, and Ted Nugent, all of that. We mixed it up with the Motown sound and just started playing Motown real loud, and that became rock and roll. But Funkadelic style, we actually call it Funkadelic as opposed to psychedelic.
Yeah.
I reach.
George, I saw you about 7 years ago for the first time in Bridgeport, Connecticut at a festival called Gathering the Vibes 2007. And when I saw you, you knocked my block off, sir. It was unbelievable. And ever since then, I've been a fan. And
I appreciate it.
Yeah, Joe was saying earlier that your hair was so bright he could see you from miles away.
Right down the field.
Well, you know, on the new album, it's got an app the book, rather. I just put out a book, Brothers Be Your Like George.
Yeah.
Ain't that funkin' kind of hard on you?
We got it right here.
Yeah, I was just reading it, yeah.
Yeah, I have it on.
Yeah, you can take a picture of that cover after you get that app. That hair, you can put it on anybody's head.
Oh, really? Awesome.
Take a picture of them, and the hair be right on top of their head. Just look at that book cover. You see the little app thing down in the right-hand corner.
I'm going to hold Joey to that. Joey, you got to come up with this colored hair.
Absolutely.
I think Dimitri would definitely benefit from that one.
Dimitri don't have the guts for it, though. Doesn't have the chutzpah.
George,
Joey will do it.
George, you're in your 70s now. I mean, how do you keep killing it on stage, man? How do you get the energy? How do you every time we
funk
hear?
is its own reward. If you funkin', that's your energy. You don't need nothing else.
That's a beautiful thing.
You know what I'm saying? When you get
ain't
into
no
the
thing.
funk, trust me, you all right.
Fair.
One thing I want to talk about, George, I saw you last year at the House of Blues, and
in Boston?
In Boston, yeah.
Oh man, you know Boston is that's where we started that psychedelic Funkadelic at the Sugar Shack.
Ooh.
Oh man, really?
That's just down the.
I remember
who turned
that.
us out.
Yeah.
That's who turned us out. That's who got us crazy. We was a nice, clean-cut group till we got to Boston.
There's some good stories in that book about how you guys started in Boston. That's for sure.
No, they got
the stories in that book. Yeah.
So Boston corrupted him.
Corrupt us to no end.
Well, Boston's got that dirty water, right?
Yeah.
But it was cool, though. Believe me, I appreciate everything that happened there.
It's a great town.
You know,
It really is.
and like on page 379, that's the whole reason for writing that book. So that's all I want to say about that. Check page 379 on. That is the reason for the book.
Absolutely. We're definitely going to take a look at that for sure.
I'm opening it up right now.
Okay.
One thing I wanted to ask you is that, so I saw you last year. You had an incredibly different style from what your signature is. I mean, you were in like a three-piece suit, leather shoes, a hat. You came on like a boss, which was just completely different from...
But I always have to do something new to reinvent myself.
Oh, man.
I have to reclone myself every so often. That was the way we started out in 1956, 57.
It was a classic.
That's the way we used to dress. So I figured ain't nobody going to remember that. So I do it again, and it looks brand new.
George, I got a question. So you've been around the music business for way over 50 years. You've seen where singles have gone to album concepts, and now we're in a generation where the album concept has kind of diminished, and we're seeing a lot of singles. Do you ever see it?
Yep.
Do you ever see it go back to the album concept?
But it doesn't matter to me which way it goes. I'm making music, and whichever way us grown-ups don't want it to go, that's the way the kids going to want it to go.
Ah, I see.
So I'm always part of the kids, no matter which way they go. You know what I'm saying? It does that. It changes because kids don't want their parents or their big brothers and sisters' music. So it just changed the trend. Every now I'm looking at the videos, those little 10-second videos or 5-second videos now.
Yeah.
Attention span is really short, but we made 2-minute records in the early 60s and late 50s. It was 2 minutes and 30 seconds. That was it. We stretch out with Maggie Rain to 9 minutes, and then 15 minutes with Knee Deep. So we love making long records, but if it comes to the point where they only want to sample and just loop the sample, then I'm a sample, copy, dupe it, and loop it to stupid.
Fair enough.
You know, I mean, like that's sort of one of the things I think is going to be interesting when the album comes out is that, you know, we are in an age of shorter songs. We're in an age of fragmented albums. But what we're talking about here is fun.
Excuse me for cutting you off. This album, like I said, 33 songs on it. We got 9-minute songs, and we got 4-minute songs. That's about the shortest we get.
Yeah,
but we have a lot of room there.
I think that's awesome. I think that's how it should be, personally. A good 9-minute song where you can fall into that music for a little while. That's a beautiful thing.
I mean, that's what electronic music is pretty long. I mean, when those kids get out on the dance floor or wherever the concert is at, they want those long grooves. They can just lose themselves in it. And so we're part of the electronic age, too. We're part of that electronic music. Anything that makes you shake your butt, I'm down with it.
You've been doing electronic music for a long time. You know, listening to your records in the 80s and music from the late 70s, it's like you've embraced that at a time far before, you know, sort of the signature 80s sound came out. You know, what sort of drew you to electronic music, I guess?
Well, the synthesizers, we knew that was coming. We knew that was coming. We waited for it, and we watched it happen. We paid attention to Emerson, Lake and Palmer, King Crimson, you know, back in the, you know, mid-'60s. And we knew it wouldn't be long before it become part of the R&B music. You know, we heard it with Yes and, you know, all those groups. So when we did Flashlight, we used a Moog as the bass.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that was like the first time that had ever been done. And Bernie's a classical trained pianist. He went to school there in Berkeley. And when he was 14, he was playing classical music. So once we got Testify out and we had to do something different with the rock and roll, it was easy for us to just incorporate the synthesizers and the Moogs and all of it, whatever the new electronics came out. So I think we were ahead of the game. Even when hip-hop was on the rise, we did Atomic Dog right at the very beginning of hip-hop. And now it's like probably one of the most sampled songs in hip-hop. You know, Atomic Dog, We Want the Funk.
That's my personal favorite.
You know, all of that.
Cool. The book.
And that was all synthesized.
The book, I gotta make sure I'm saying this right. Brothers Be Yo Like George, Ain't That Funkin' Hard on You. Where can people get this book?
Anywhere. I mean, Barnes & Noble is everywhere now. It's like So Hot today, you know, came out yesterday. I mean, it's already #1.
Very nice.
It is so hot. I mean, there's 5 songs on that. When you get that app, there's 5 songs off the album for free on the book.
Oh, wow. Okay. So there's something
You'll be able
extra.
to hear Brothers Be Yo Like George, Ain't That Funkin' Kinda Hard on You, which is the first single.
Oh, nice.
Hey, George, I got one more question before we got to let you go. And thanks so much for sticking with us. Where did Dr. Funkenstein obtain his doctorate? We got to know.
Oh, Berkeley.
Ah,
Well,
yes.
he said Boston.
Well, just,
Yeah, Boston. Yeah, I got my doctorate there. They restored me. And I'll be up there again, next week?
oh, great. You're coming back around.
You come to
Yeah,
the
I'm coming
studio.
up to Berkeley.
Beautiful.
We're doing a class there, Fred Wesley and myself.
Oh, nice.
Also, just one last thing. You're coming back to Boston on Valentine's Day, aren't you?
Yes, right. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Ooh.
I know where I'm taking my date, or whoever I'm dating at that point.
I'll bring them, JB.
Whoever he's dating. at
There we
this
go.
point. Hey, if you're in Boston, pop by the studio sometime. We'd love to have you in person.
Okay, but
That'd
you
be
can
great.
check out those songs on that app there.
Yeah.
The Brothers Be Yo Like George.
Oh,
Ain't
we
that
definitely will.
funkin' kind of hot on you?
Ain't that funkin' kind of hard on you? I said I was hard when I started. I'll be hard when I get through.
Right on, right on. Well, I guess that's pretty much it. George,
Yeah.
thanks so
Thank you so much.
for joining us today.
Thank you. And we will come by there when we get there.
Yeah, definitely.
Can't
Come by,
wait to
pop
see
in, and
you.
say hi to us. Really. Tell him,
Okay, thanks
tell him
a lot.
Ashley sent you.
All right, guys.
Okay.
You have
thank
a good night. Thank you.
And you can get George Clinton's book, Brothers Be Yo Like George Ain't That Funkin' Kinda Hard on You, a memoir by George Clinton at your local bookstore, Amazon.com, or wherever you can find a book.
Wherever
Maybe the
books
library.
are sold. Yeah, it's everywhere.
Check that book out. It's pretty cool.
Well, check it out, y'all. We got what you need. We're all living in apartments, condos, vans. Well, dude, even you can have a studio in a box. Yes, we can help you with that right here at Blind Knowledge. We work on your budget, and we figure out your measurements. We'll get you the best sound for the best price. Let me know, 877-237-1143 or at blindknowledge.com. Yep. Cool thing about Blind Knowledge is we are in multiple countries. We are worldwide all across the globe. We are in the US, we are in the UK, we are in Canada, Germany, India, Japan. We're in Australia, y'all. BlindKnowledge.com. Now back to the feature presentation.